Imagine a tiny village nestled deep in the Welsh mountains, a place where generations have lived, where everyone knows your name. This is Aberlefony, a slate mining community with a heart as strong as the rock it was built on. For decades, it was a sanctuary, a close-knit family of neighbours. But in 2016, a shadow fell over this idyllic hamlet. The entire village, all 16 homes, the quarry, the surrounding land, everything was put up for sale. The residents held their breath. Who would buy their world? The answer came in the form of a mysterious millionaire couple, Chris and Lisa Walsh. Initially, there was a sense of cautious optimism. Perhaps these new owners would invest in the village, preserving its unique character. The reality, however, turned into a nightmare far worse than anyone could have imagined. The peace of Aberlefony was about to be shattered. For years, the rents in Aberlefony were modest, a reflection of the village's history and the modest incomes of its residents. It was part of what made the community so stable, but the Walshes saw things differently. Soon after the acquisition, letters started to arrive. Brown envelopes that carried devastating news. Rent increases. Not just small adjustments, but massive, life-altering hikes. Some residents saw their monthly payments skyrocket by over 60%. Take Sarah Lewis, a resident who had called Aberlefony home for years. She suddenly found herself facing a rent she simply could not afford. And she wasn't alone. One by one, her neighbours received the same shocking demands. People who had lived in their homes for 20, 30, even 40 years were being told to pay up or get out. Many were elderly, retired, or living with health conditions. Their homes weren't just brick and mortar. They were their support systems, their memories, their entire lives. The community was in shock. Then that shock turned to anger. How could this happen? How could a couple, with all their wealth, be so ruthless? The villagers, people who had always been quiet and kept to themselves, decided to fight back. They organized protests, holding signs that read "No to greedy landlords" and "Save our homes." The story hit the local news, then the national press. The plight of this tiny Welsh village captured the hearts of people across the country. Sarah Lewis became a vocal leader in the fight, her voice filled with a mix of despair and determination. She spoke of the sleepless nights, the constant worry, the feeling of being powerless. She described how her neighbours, many in their 70s and 80s, were being forced to choose between paying rent and buying food. These weren't just tenants. They were custodians of the village's history, the very soul of the community, and they were being priced out of their own heritage. What was the justification for these brutal rent hikes? The company owned by Chris and Lisa Walsh released a statement. They claimed the previous rents were unsustainably low, and that the new figures were simply bringing the properties up to fair market value. They argued that the increases were necessary to maintain the properties and invest in the village's infrastructure. To the residents, this explanation felt like a slap in the face. Fair market value meant nothing to someone on a fixed pension who had lived in the same house for half a century. The village wasn't a portfolio of assets. It was a community of human beings. The battle raged on, but it was an uneven fight. The residents had passion and public support, but the Walshes had the law and deep pockets on their side. The eviction notices began to arrive. Heartbreak echoed through the valley as one family after another packed up their belongings. Cars and moving vans became a common sight on the narrow village lanes. Each departure was like a small death for the community. Lights went out in windows that had shone for decades. The once lively village, where children played in the streets and neighbours chatted over garden fences, began to feel eerily quiet. Aberlefony was transforming into a ghost town. The homes weren't being filled with new families. They sat empty, silent monuments to the community that had been dismantled. The remaining residents walked through their village with a heavy heart, seeing the ghosts of their friends and neighbors at every turn. The school bus had fewer stops to make. The sense of belonging, the very thing that made Aberlefony special, was evaporating. Imagine the psychological toll, living under the constant threat of eviction, watching your community disintegrate around you. The support network that had been so crucial, especially for the elderly residents, was gone. If someone fell ill, there were fewer neighbors to check in on them. The simple act of borrowing a cup of sugar became a thing of the past. The spirit of Aberlefony was being systematically destroyed, all in the name of profit and market value. The story of Aberlefony raises profound questions about housing, community, and morality. Is it right for individuals to buy an entire community and treat it purely as a financial investment? Where do we draw the line between property rights and human decency? The residents weren't asking for a free ride. They were asking for fairness, for recognition of their history and their loyalty to the village. They were asking for their homes not to be treated like stocks and shares on a balance sheet. Today, the future of Aberlefony remains uncertain. The struggle continues for the few residents who have managed to hold on. The empty houses are a stark reminder of what has been lost. The story serves as a cautionary tale for other small communities across the country and around the world. It shows how quickly a way of life, built over generations, can be wiped out by the cold logic of the market. This isn't just a story about a village in Wales. It's a story about the value we place on community, the security of a home, and the dignity of people, especially the most vulnerable in our society. The fight for Aberlefony is a fight for the idea that a home should be more than just an asset. It should be a right. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please share it to raise awareness about the challenges facing communities like Aberlefony. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that matter. See you next time.